Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. As you can see, this time we're looking at an Atari 65XE. So yeah, it's certainly seen better days. It's not survived very well in transit. You can see it's just a bit of plastic fallen out here. It's got a chip here on the front. I'm not sure if that happened in transit. I think it did, because I never noticed anything from looking at the pictures. We've got a hole there bit in transit and a piece chipped off here. I'm not bothered about that bit so much, it's so minor, and it's on the back, but I mean, for the most part it seems in one piece. You can see it's got a problem with the key here, so we'll have a look at that. Yeah, so you can see there it's just broken off, so a little bit of super glue and a new spring. I'm assuming there's ever spring. That should be fixable pretty easy, I think. So I'm going to make up a power supply lead and video lead. So the power supply, I've got an old Fujifilm camera PSU. You can see it's 5 volts 2 amp. I think the 65XE only pulls about an amp, so this should be fine. I've tested this, it does work. So what I'll probably do is snip this connector off back there, so I can perhaps reuse this for something else. It's got a nice one of those things there, I can't remember what they're called now. It's got like a magnets in it, hasn't it? So the power connector needs to be 7-pin circular type, not the U-type. You know, there is a U-type where the pins on this side sort of go, this one here would be directly underneath that, straight down, and that would be the U-type. But this one's, like I say, it's a C. It's more of like a sort of a horseshoe shape. And I think, now I might have this the wrong way around, it might need to be that way, I'm not sure. But I think it's these 3 here, plus 5, and the other 4 are ground. So it's a bit of a weird way of using one of these for a power connector, but yeah, that should be alright for the power. And then for the video, we've just got a 5-pin DIN, and this is one I've reclaimed off a cable a long time since, actually, and used the cable for something else, I think. So yeah, I'll just solder the wires on. I'm going to use one of these. It's just a cheap, it's like £2 job. It's just an extension here, and I'll snip off the female parts here because I don't need them. And then just join them up, heat shrink them, slide the heat shrink across, and then have one piece of heat shrink to cover the join there. It should be alright. But it's good reuse of a connector that otherwise would have gone in the bin. So I just thought I'd show this because I've never shown it before. How do you actually get the sheathing, the plastic covering off a cable here? And it's just a case of just gently snip around it. Just try and get just the very edge if you can. You're looking to make a mark more than anything rather than cut right into it. Just do that all the way around, and then take your cutters, just do that. Make sure you're not pressing really tight, otherwise you'll pull the whole thing to pieces. But you can see here, that's come apart now. We've got the outer braid, and then you need to separate them like this, and then just try and gather all of the shielding braid there together, twist it all up like that. There's a bit of corrosion or something in there. It looks a funny colour, the outer braid there. But yeah, that's okay. And it's a similar thing with this. You can see, it's a very thin core there, so you just need to be careful not to snip too much. Just, like I say, try and mark it more than anything. Just bite into the very edge of it, all the way around. Solder those up now, just tin them. I might need to shorten them a bit, actually, because they're not going to need that amount of length on, actually. So I could perhaps snip that down to, in fact, I'll probably do that. I'll snip it down to about there, and then cut it back off again. I'll solder this and then cut it down to about there, because it doesn't need to be much longer. And if you've been wondering if these things are any good, actually, they're pretty cheap. It's just like copper, shavings here in a container. It's like, I don't know, £1 or 2 or something from China. You just shove your iron in there, and it gets the tip super clean, actually. You can see that. So I've done my power supply connector there. It's nice to tight grip. Just need to do the video connector now. So I think I've just worked out that pin 4 is composite video, and that's the white wire here. So stripped off the end of the yellow here from these, and I'll do the same for the other 2. In fact, I'll have an extra wire here because I only need one of these, so I can strip that completely down. You just pull it like that. I'll get rid of the white one, and I'll just have yellow and red. In fact, I'll just do that now. Just peel that all the way back. So I got my power supply and video cable hooked up here, and I just heat that heat shrink at some point just to join it properly. But if we switch it on, I'll just point you at the screen. Let's just see whether it powers up. Yeah, I think that's alright. I think that key being stuck down perhaps is the issue, so let's just see if we can just temporarily just remove that key. Might need to turn it upside down to get the key out. So try again. Still going to stick down, I think, because there's nothing pulling the thing up. Yeah, it's managing to press some keys here, others maybe not. Like the F key's not working, I don't think. Could just need a good clean. Of course, it could be some sort of fault with the way it scans the matrix inside, you know, F. F is just not doing anything there. But it's just that one key. Oh yeah, L's not doing anything either. So yeah, I'm suspecting it's just dirt, I think. So I'll get the lid off now. It's very much like the ST. This is like a mini version of the ST. Yeah, so it screws around the base. Looks like it's just the 4 screws, I think. As you can see, the keyboard's pretty dirty here actually. I'm not sure how this comes out. Does it slide up a little bit or something? I'm not sure. Yeah, it looks like it slides up a little bit. Got the flexible ribbon down there that we need to disconnect. Yeah, so this little bit here was off the corner there, so I can stick that back on, it's not a problem. And these pillars here will go back on the underside. And we have got the whole piece of plastic there that's broken off out of there by the looks of things. It looks like the exact profile if you look at the shape of it. So just getting the board out now. I've taken the first screw out there. I've undone these twists just like on the ST, you know, you get a pair of pliers on them. Sorry, camera's going all over the place. Normally they'll be a little bit twisted like that, you just need to just straighten them up. So I've done that all the way around, just get these few screws out, that holds the board. Oh no, yeah, it's not holding the shielding. Should be able to just get the shielding off now, I think. There's only that one screw holding it on. Yeah, there we go. So a close look at the board here, we've got some corrosion on top of the modulator, nothing major really, it's just superficial. You've got some RAM here. This is interesting. You've got space there for an extra 64k RAM, so I can upgrade this to 128k. That's nice. It's probably going to be like the ST where you just have to have, you know, obviously you need the caps, the bypass cap for each position there, and there might be some resistors to solder. Let's see if we can find any empty spots on the board, but yeah, it's a safe bet. I can upgrade that to 128k, I think. You might need a different ROM. Sometimes these, not necessarily these systems, but systems in general sometimes need a different ROM if you have more memory, but hopefully that's not the case with this one. So yeah, tons of Atari parts here that I don't recognise any of the part numbers on any of these actually. Yeah, Atari part numbers will start with a C, C0 something. 6520. Yeah, I've got no idea. I'm guessing down here we're going to have like a ROM. One of these might be a ROM, I'm not sure. Absolutely no idea. Good old 555 down there for the reset circuitry. And the crystal's looking a bit squished across there. Just move that way a little bit. Yeah, it's looking alright I think on the inside. So I guess the next thing we need to do is fix this keyboard. I'm obviously going to need to take this to pieces completely. It's going to be just like the ST. I've got the wrong kind of screwdriver there actually. Yeah, I need a cross point, but yeah, it's going to be a case of getting all these screws out in order that I can, you know, clean the PCB up underneath, clean the plungers, but also get the plastic part attached back to the thing inside there. There might have been nothing to attach it to. I don't know, that could be the next problem I've got here. Yeah, we'll see anyway. We'll get the screws out first and just have a look what's what. So I've got all the screws out. This should separate now. I've got to be careful with this flex ribbon here. Just need to make sure I feed it through in such a way that I don't put any stress onto the thing. Like that. There you go, there's the film. Yeah, got to be extra careful with that. This is one of these things when you wipe it down, I'd be tempted to not use IPA actually, just use a damp cloth actually, just really carefully wipe that down. Just put that over there. There you go, you can see the keys here. So yeah, this function key here is totally mangled. I might need to see if I can find a replacement key for that or something, I'm not sure. I might be able to glue it. Don't know. Yeah, I think I can glue that actually, because it's just the pillar at the top that's broken off. That I don't know if you can see. It's still in one piece and it's still got the contacts underneath there. But with these, yeah, just a tiny bit of IPA cotton bud, just gently wipe over each one of these. I'll glue that switch back together and wipe the membrane down there, and then reassemble it. Got some dust and stuff in here as well, so I'll get that out. So that black piece of plastic has been pretty resilient actually, can't get it off at all. So the best thing to do actually is freeze this, get some freezer spray onto it, because it will contract, especially the bit in the centre. Which should hopefully make it a little bit easier to get it off, although it might break. That's one problem I've got with this, that if I'm not careful I could just break it. Yeah, freezer spray was just the thing really. It was just a case of just getting it under like that and really carefully lifting it off, and yeah, that's come off and it's all in one piece. So I can now hopefully glue this back onto here and find a spring. So with this, just a gentle wipe actually with a damp cloth. I don't want to pull anything off this, it just needs a wipe. Then I'll wipe it with a dry cloth afterwards. Then I just clean these up, just like I say, a gentle wipe with some IPA. The hardest part with this is it's time consuming, you know, it's remembering which ones you've done and which ones you haven't, so do it methodically, go across like row by row by row. So strictly speaking, I should be completely disassembling this, taking all the keycaps off, but I'm just going to go around the edges and get cotton buds in between the keys and under the keys and all the rest of it, and just use some IPA here to go over these keys and just give them a wipe down. We've got some yellowed keys. I could remove these and clean this a bit more thoroughly at a later date, and perhaps even retro bright these yellowed ones. But yeah, I should be able to get most of the dirt off with this, I think. So I haven't finished reassembling the keyboard yet, but I thought I'd have to clean up the membrane there. I thought I'd just try it and see what's happening. And it's still doing the same thing where a number of keys aren't working. And I've inspected the membrane, there's nothing wrong with it at all, or the connection here. So following the schematics actually, I've been looking at the 130 XE, is it? Schematics instead of the 65. It's the same, going to be the same I think. I think it's just got additional RAM on the 130 here. It's probably the same board I would think. So it looks like you've got two 4051s here. I think these are multiplexers, or could be demuxers, I'm not sure. So I'll perhaps order some of these. In the meantime, I think the first thing I'm going to do is just socket these and just swap them around, see if the behaviour changes, see if the different keys are affected. Beyond that, it could be this chip here, I'm not sure. Looking at the schematics, it looks like the Pokey interfaces with these 4051s to read the input. So it could have a faulty Pokey. I'm guessing it's that just from the local vicinity. It looks like we've got some connections here to the 4051s. So yeah, I hope it's not the Pokey, but nothing's getting warm. So there's no clear indications of a fault from temperature. But yeah, I'll socket these up and swap them around. So that's the first chip off. I'll get a socket on there and then get the other one off. So I'll show you quickly how I fixed this. Do not try epoxy or super glue, it's absolutely impossible. I'll see how close I can get here without blurring. Can you see I just touched the solder line all the way around on the fracture as I held it in position, all the way around the base. And then I removed this. I'll show you how to do this. You just pull the little rubber bit out like that, pull it up, do the same on the other side. You can see it snaps off, and then I've just put the iron into the cavity here and just moved it around just a little bit to melt the inside of the fracture at the point where the base joins the top part. So yeah, hopefully you can see that. But I did try super glue 3 times. I tried epoxy twice, and this plastic is that type of plastic that nothing will bond to it at all. It's it's a solid, smooth, flat surface. Nothing neither super glue or epoxy will work, but I've just tested this and it works fine. The other thing you might need to do is if you deform the bottom a little bit as I have here, when you put it back in, it might not push all the way through here. So what I've just done, and again, this is unorthodox, put these in, just push it a little bit like that, and do the same from the other side, just to widen it by like a 1/4 of a millimetre, and then put a little bit of grease on the inside of there. And it fits perfectly now. It works and it holds together and it comes out level as well, as I'll show you in a minute. So I'll just clip it back on here. The springs, you can use A500 springs that are identical in dimension and height. And if we just get this in position here, just carefully clip it back on, that's it. You can see it's holding in position, and you've got the full travel distance there. So, job done. Yeah, so just a quick look at the diagram here. The Pokey chip is here. I take my word for it, it doesn't really fit on the screen, but we've got a few connections here, K5, K4, K3, that go across to this 4051. And then likewise, the other 4051's got K0, K1, K2. And I've checked those, there's activity on all three pins, either on the 4051s here, or on, I think it's pins 18 to 20 something on the Pokey. But I've tried a few other things as well, just to rule things out here. I've connected up the bench power supply here. You can see I've got it set to just a tad below 5 volts, 4.97, because the power supply I'm using is outputting like 5.25. And I just want to just rule out that VCC difference was not inhibiting the ability for it to read the keyboard in any way. It shouldn't do, but you never know. So, but it's just the same. But one thing I thought I'd show you, is what's actually going on here, and the self-test mode as well. Despite the fact the keyboard is now cleaned up and reassembled, I can see a bit more than that actually. I'll switch it off, switch it on. You'll see that if you do a short switch off, switch on, it comes straight up, which is a bit weird. Whereas if you leave it off for say 20-30 seconds, it's kind of reminiscent of the ST, that something somewhere is staying resident in RAM or something. It like thinks it doesn't need to reinitialize or something, because you'll see a difference in behaviour. If I switch it off on now, yeah, did you hear that zzz? And you get a black screen first, whereas if I switch it off, leave it for a few seconds, then switch it back on, it comes straight back with a prompt, like it's not doing a hard reset. It's bizarre. But anyway, if I hold down the Option key, I might need to wait for it to, yeah, I'm going to need to wait for it to reset itself properly, so I'll just leave it off for another 20 seconds or so, and then I'll power it on by holding down the Option key to go into the self-test mode. So that took ages actually. I had to leave the thing powered off for about 40 seconds at least before it would do like a proper cold, a proper hard reset. It's just really weird. So I'd appreciate comments below if anybody knows anything about that. Is that normal behaviour? It just seems really weird to me, because there's not enough caps on the board to be holding any charge, once the power goes off. So I'm at a loss to understand how it knows, that it's a cold, it's like a warm reboot, sort of a cold reboot. It's just bizarre. Maybe the reset circuit there, maybe the cap on there is not quite right, and after it's been warmed up, it's been the cap's charged or something, it behaves slightly differently, and it needs to be cold for a period of time, or discharge completely. I don't know, it's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. But anyway, I don't think that's related to the issue I've got here. It might be, I don't know. But the main thing is, you can see we can go through the test mode here. So if I do select, it goes through the different modes. If we go straight to the keyboard one and hit start, and I go through the keys, I'll start with the top row. So you've got the escape key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4's missing. And this is the thing, it's a row. You'll see, I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9's missing, 0, bracket, backspace, down to the next row, tab, Q, W, E, R, R's missing, T, Y, U, O, O's missing, P, minus equals, return, next one down, control's not doing anything, A, S, D, F, F's missing, G, H, J, K, L, L is missing. I can see a pattern already, it's a column. Final row, shift not doing anything, Z, X, C, V not working, B, N, M, comma's not working either. The other shift's not working, space is. So I'll show you, if I just point you down at the keyboard, you can hear 3 works, 4 doesn't, and it's the same in this row here. E works, R doesn't, F, V, so we've got like 4, R, F, V, and it's similar over here. I think we've got 9, O, L, dot, so the row's sort of coming across here, sorry, the column, so it's like there's a couple of columns not being read. So bear in mind I've swapped the 4051s around, same behaviour, cleaned up the keyboard membrane, like I say, inspected it thoroughly. I can't see any cracks, damage anywhere on the you know, the ribbon where it connects in, or the actual membrane itself. I can't see anything that could be a fault there. So I think the only thing it leaves is the Pokey. So I've ordered a replacement Pokey. Hopefully that should be here in a few days, and I'll come back in a minute once it's arrived. So whilst I wait for the Pokey to come, you can see I've just filled that gap there with some plastic filler. It looks a mess, but when it's finished, what I'll do is I'll wipe it down. All the excess bits that smeared on the inside there will come off, and then I'll get some grey plastic paint, you know, acrylic paint, and I'll mix it with some white, get exactly the right colour, and just go over the bit that's damaged. So you might probably not be able to see it. The other thing I'm going to do here is where this big piece is chipped off, you can see I've pegged a piece of plastic underneath that's the right height to keep it away from this inner gap here, because you know there's going to be that this recess, you know, is where the bit underneath fits, the bottom part of the case. So that's going to fill that for the moment, and then the final thing I'm going to do here now, see if I can show you this, is a flat piece of card. I'm going to stick this over the top of there. As you can see with the card there as well, now we've got a cavity that we can now fill. So I'll get some plastic filler, then, you know, smooth across it with a piece of card to make it as flat as possible. Might need to repeat that a few times, and then I can just really lightly sand that corner and either leave it white as it is and the case will be complete, or I can paint it with the acrylic paint, which I think that's what I'm going to do, because this case is not aged, you know, it's not gone yellow. It'll be easy enough to match a grey, and you won't be able to, well, you might be able to just tell where that's been damaged, but at least it'll be whole. There you go, you can see what I mean. It's not going to focus very well, but you can see I filled that and just smoothed across it, and it's pretty flat actually. I might just try and support it from this end with a bit of tape on the underside just to make it nice and flat, but let that dry and then we'll see how it looks afterwards. So I think what I need to do next is take out the Pokey. So I've shown all this stuff a million times before, but yeah, I've got some WD-40 into my solder pump. You can hear it's like really firing with a lot of suction there, and that's the key really, but also, you know, preheating these pins with some fresh solder and flux. As you can see, those are clearing pretty well. So something else to point out here, the side in which you make contact with the pin makes a bit of a difference as well actually. If I heat from that side, you can see I've pushed it inwards a little bit. Sorry, it's not sucking. There you go, it's come straight out. Now the reason it's better to do it that way from the outer edge of the chip and just push it in a little bit is because the pins, if you look at this, say a chip like this here, they're naturally spread outwards, so once they're being placed on the board, the outer edge is making a better connection with the pad. And we'll just gradually drag this along the pins here like this, and this will suck up any excess solder on this side. Even though they look free, they're not, and this type of board, it will break if I'm not careful. Got a few pins there where I've just added a bit of solder actually, but I'll just snip it off. Just repeat that process again down here, because we've got a couple there that I've introduced some solder to. That should have done the trick, I think. And just gradually go along. You've got to spend enough time on each pin, otherwise, let's say you end up adding solder if you're not careful. There you go, that's looking a lot cleaner down this side now. There's hardly any solder there at all. I'll just get you a macro of that actually. There we go. So with a macro you can see that it just gets any extra little bits of solder that are on that side, even though it's not much different. If you look at the other side, it's not much different there. That one's not been done with the flux on that side, but yeah, it does make a difference. So by the time we've done that side as well, it should pretty much fall off, I think. Well, I'm not going to lie, that was really hard to get off. You can see the pins are just a little bit wobbly. You know, they need straightening a bit, and there's flux all over it, but yeah, I can do that. No damage to the board. I'll clean that up and give you an inspection in a minute. One thing you will find is if you do use the solder braid as I've done, some of the solder mass comes off those little traces. You can see bits of solder there, so I'll go back over that with some desolder braid and some solder, just to make sure they are covered. There's none that are, you know, exposed. But yeah, that's one sort of problem you can get if you drag the solder braid across slowly. You know, like I say, it removes just, can you see here, just the edges, just you know, of where the pad joins the trace there. So there you go on Super Micro. You can see what I mean. Sometimes as you drag the solder braid across here, you know, it just exposes these traces. So I've just coated them with a bit of solder, just using the desolder braid that had a bit of solder on it, just gently dragged up and down them. But as you can see, it's looking pretty good really. So I'll get a socket on there and we'll try a new chip. So I've got the original chip in the socket there. I'm just going to test it, just make sure it still works before the replacement chip arrives. Right, so I've got the original chip in the socket. Let's just see what happens. Yeah, can you hear that key click? That's the thing, even though the keyboard's not connected. So I think that is a clue as well. So I've switched this off. I'm going to try it without a Pokey and just out of interest to see what it does. But in case you're wondering, without a Pokey, that's all you get. You don't get the noise, the key click noise. So yeah, I mean, that obviously indicates it's waiting for a response from the Pokey. So I thought it was worth testing the RAM and ROM. And to get into the menu, I might not have shown it previously, I'm not sure. You hold down Option while you power it on. And obviously, in my case here, that only works when it's a cold start. So, you know, you've got to leave it switched off for like 30 seconds and then hold down the Option key, switch it on, and then it'll go into the Diagnostics, it's built-in self-test. And I think you use like select, start, and select and start to decide which test you want. And as you can see, I've just gone for the memory test here, so we'll just let that run through. And whilst this isn't a comprehensive test, it certainly shows that the Pokey, sound capabilities are okay. Well, it's outputting some sound. So like I say, I need to do some more thorough testing. I think get some software running in order to determine whether all the functionality of the Pokey is working there sound-wise. But it's all 4 channels are playing that same short melody there. So I guess what I could do is keep this Pokey and use this as a dual Pokey setup. So I'll perhaps get one of those little stereo boards, a bit like the dual SID board, where I think one Pokey sits at a certain address or something like that. And I think there's lots of software and stuff out there that's been designed to work with stereo Pokeys. So here's a partway update for you. You can see where I filled that in there. So yeah, it looks a bit white, and this whole area needs polishing and stuff after I've sorted it. But I can just get a grey paint now just to match, just very, very gently touch up that little bit there, so it shouldn't stand out like a sore thumb. You can see here I've got the second or third application here, so it's stuck out a little bit there, it's rippled on the edge. Sorry, it's not focusing very well, is it? Put my hand there, perhaps it might focus a bit better. But yeah, so the edge is just a bit uneven, so I'm just trying to add some more there to fill it up. But you can see it's a bit wonky there, but by the time I've finished and sanded that down, it will look a hell of a lot better. So my new Pokey's arrived here. It came with a socket. I didn't think it came with a socket, so that was a surprise. At least I've got another spare 40-pin socket now. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, I don't see any solder on it, so it looks like it's it's come off a socketed board or something. It's perhaps come from an old 400 or an 800 or something. But yeah, we'll get that chip in there now. Yeah, so that's a bit disturbing. It's still doing the same thing. I was going to say, I think it's not these because I've swapped them around, but I'm just wondering if the same fault has occurred on both of these chips. Now I do have some replacements of these. I think there was a 74 chip actually. It's like a 74 HC 4051, which is looks like it should work. It's it's got the HC there, so it's CMOS, even though it's a 74 series chip. So I'll try swapping both out and just see whether that makes any difference. So just backtracking, actually, the Pokey's got like an output enable, and it comes from this page of the diagram here. You can see Pokey is an output, it's pointing that way, and it comes from the 74LS138 here. That line seems like it's stuck low to me, like the Pokey's always enabled. Now I could be wrong. I'll double check it in a minute with the Logic Pro, but maybe that 138. The other complication here, I did try piggybacking the 138 just to see if a working chip would solve it, but it's just the same. But it could be that the output is stuck high or something, and even with another chip, it's not strong enough to pull it low or something like that. But you can see there's a relationship here between the this PAL 16LE. It comes out of there, that I/O pin. But I'm seeing activity there pulsing on the Logic Probe, so that makes me think that maybe the PAL's alright unless the timing of that is incorrect. One of the logic's broken down in there, one particular part of the logic's not right or something, so that it's it's outputting high when it shouldn't do or something along those lines. But I'm at a loss really. I've You know, I've checked everything I can on this page here with the you know, the 4051s and the Pokey. I did check to see if we got this clock, this O2 coming in here. That looks okay. I can't see what else it could be. It could be this PAL. Maybe this PAL's got a fault. I'm not sure, you know, because I don't understand what that PAL's doing really. I'd need to see some equations or something for it to understand how that's working. It might be a case you can get a gal and someone might have already done the equations there in order that you can actually program a gal and replace that PAL. I'm not sure, but this is one of these messy repairs actually, that, you know, ones that tend to get more difficult, which is good. I like a challenge, but at the same time it can make it very difficult. This might be the sort of thing I end up having to get a lot of my logic analyzer onto, because at the moment I'm kind of in the dark. I followed the, you know, the logical steps to take with this is to backtrack it. You know, start with your keyboard connections, which, you know, come in here. So your membrane, is it your keyboard? Is your keyboard okay? Is the membrane okay? Are the connections okay? Are the connections getting through to these 4051s? Well, the 4051s aren't the problem. I swapped them around initially, same behaviour. Swapped them out completely for replacements, same behaviour. Checked some of the passives and things around here, the diode, resistors, can't see anything, and typically they'll burn out. You know, it's evident when a resistor fails, and the board looks fine. I've had a really thorough inspection, check for broken traces, can't find anything, then taking a step back and said, okay, well, the only other thing that's handling the input from the keyboard here is the Pokey. Swap that out, exactly the same. So, you know, we're having to go back, and this is the problem we're now getting into. If it's not, look at this page, if it's not the 138, then it's quite possible it has to be this. Other than that, we're looking at some really weird quirk, perhaps. So I've been all around the houses on this, on a wild goose chase really. There's a few things I should have done earlier on really, and that was at the point when I suspected the 4051s. Looking at the diagram, I'll just show you briefly here. You can see we've got some in connections here into one of them and outs. So this is how it's scanning the keyboard matrix here. You know, you'll have an output generated on here, maybe a high or something, and it'll be detected via this side here. You know, depending on which key you've pressed. That's how you get your matrix. You know, it's a combination of these different outputs set and the inputs read. So if you short, you know, between some of these pins, let's say, I don't know, from between pin 2 to pin 5, for example, you'll get a key press, and I can demonstrate that now actually. If I just power it on, wait for the clicking to stop. I'm not sure that clicking's normal. That could be a secondary fault with this. And if I just hold, sorry, it's going to be hard to do this actually on camera. Get it lined up with 2, hold it in place. Yeah, so I've got to hold it in place. If I press this on here now, can you hear that? We've got a J up on the screen. 2, that's given a character. 1, that's given a character. So doing that, I actually managed to get 4, the digit 4, and that's one of the keys that doesn't work. So straight away I'm like, oh god, you know, so there's definitely nothing wrong here, there's nothing wrong with the Pokey, there's nothing wrong with the logic there in terms of it scanning the keyboard. So we're back to the keyboard again. So I've dismantled the keyboard again, and I thought, well, let's just have another look at this. You can see I've just gently marked a couple of green dots here where the keys correspond. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, the keys correspond that weren't working, and I've tried to follow the connectivity, and I did measure, you know, from here very carefully. You don't want to stick your probe in like that because you'll remove the stuff. You just want to put it side on and just hold it in place, and do the same thing here. As you measure the pads, just do it side on really gently, otherwise you'll damage them. I couldn't find anything. I must have spent an hour looking at this, and it's really hard to follow the traces, but flip it over and hopefully you should see something pretty obvious down here. Can you see that? I'm going to try and put it on there, and then you can see it a bit better. Yeah, here. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's just that inner trace or whether it's the outer one or both, but we'll see if there's anything I can do with that. So I just want to be clear before I cover this bit, that my videos are actually, they're more of a series of vlogs. You know, you might think that some of these videos are how-to guides and things like that, and they're not really. I'm sharing basically what I do as I do it. So, you know, this is why I share all my mistakes. It would be really easy for me to edit this video and just cut out all the things I've done and just go, oh look, it was just a membrane and that was all that needed to be done. But it's like, say, you don't learn anything, I don't learn anything, and at the same time, like I say, it's not not what the video is supposed to be. I'm not trying to make these perfect videos. I make loads of mistakes throughout my videos, and this is just a series of them in this one. You know, there's a few mistakes here. You know, if I'd tested the matrix right at the start, I would have spotted it was the membrane, and not wasted any time messing around with chips and things. But to be honest, I'm not bothered. I wanted a second Pokey, so, you know, because I'd already seen on the Lothrec website you can get a dual Pokey setup. So you know, I've not lost anything other than maybe, you know, my time and some sockets and stuff. But with regards to this, what I've got here some of this nickel conductive pen. Now, you can get silver ones and things like that, but this is highly conductive. You know, for example, you've got a tiny little bit of it dried there. I'll just put my meter on continuity, and I'll show you that even though there's just the smallest little bit there, you've got short, see that? Just from a little bit of ink on there that's dried. So now I got this, funnily enough, for an Atari. Actually, it was one of my the first thing I got when I got back into the retro scene after Alison's death. Actually, you know, that was one of the things I mentioned before. Alison's untimely, passing, basically prompted me. I thought, you know, I've been watching other people's channels. I'm going to start collecting some of this stuff myself. You know, life's too short. And I got an Atari Lynx, and at the time it had a damaged membrane. And one of the things I thought of using to fix it was this. Sadly, it was just near impossible on the Lynx membrane because it's thinner than this, and it's like that carbon sort of stuff rather than these silver traces. So it's damn near impossible to fix one of those flexible membranes there on an Atari Lynx. But I kept this, and it's, surprisingly enough, it's not dried out. It doesn't shake anymore, the ball doesn't rattle, but it still works. So I thought, well, let's have a go. And I haven't filmed this. You can see this mucky blobby trace here. I've just tested this, it works. My keys that weren't working are now working again. And all you've got to do is use a little flat blade and, you know, let's say the brake, well, the brake was here obviously, so what I've done is scratched at this angle here like that. Scratch, 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 quite a lot for 3-4 minutes until it looks like you can see your effects in the silver. And you've got to use a magnifying glass, a microscope actually be better for this, and keep looking at it. And as soon as you start to see the silver slightly different, as if like almost like you've affected the silver, you've rubbed it, stop at that point. And then what I did is I thought, how can I test connectivity to make sure that is actually exposed, because you can't damn well see the thing. And it's a case of, you know, let's say that pad there's the bit I've scratched off, just touch the pad with both probes as near as you can without touching them and see if you get short, so that you're actually testing the surface there to see if the surface is exposed. Lo and behold, I managed to do it. But I did make a little hole in this trace here at the first time when I went through, and a little hole over there, which you might be able to see. Yeah, you can just about see it here. Can you see we've got like a pinprick hole there and a pinprick hole down here? But the important thing is to expose the copper, you know, the silver. I know I said copper then, it's not. The silver, well, it probably is copper, it's probably coated with something. It might not even be that, it might be nickel or something. But yeah, expose the metal trace at either end of where the damage was. And then just, let's say in my case, there were 2 traces, one of them was okay. The outer one was okay, it was just the inner one of the 2. And you can see where I put little green dots here as I went down, and you know, in order to follow and work out which wires they were on here. And in fact, you can then test by putting your probe on here and on the relevant pad that wasn't working. You'll have to swap between either side. I can't remember. You know, it'll depend on which trace is brown as to which side of the pad's not making a connection. But on one of them, you should get a short if this has been successful. And in my case, it has. So yeah, I just need to clean this up. You can see there's a bit of silver stuff just leaked on there on the back side. So I'll wipe this down on both sides. Just inspect it before I reassemble it. Yeah, this side's not conductive, so you're alright, but yeah, that should do the trick. So yeah, a lot of messing around, but as you'll see in a minute, hopefully that's all working again. So after fixing that membrane there, I thought we'll go into the keyboard test here. Let's just test the keyboard again. So select that, press start, so we got escape, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, bracket, bracket, backspace. So yeah, looking good so far. Now bear in mind, this might not be a very long-term fix, because interesting enough the shifts don't show on here, but I'm sure they work, because I just tried the shift in basic and it works okay. So that's an oddity here in the test. Could be a problem, we'll soon find out. We'll go back to basic in a minute. Yeah, you see shifts don't show, that's really weird. So I'll press reset, see if we can get back to basic. Did you hear the sound? It went zzz, and then it was straight in. So that slow sort of noise it was making before, which is a bit weird. So if I now press the numbers, you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 4 wasn't working, the R wasn't working, the F wasn't working, the V wasn't working. So in terms of shift, I press A and then hold shift and press A. In fact, shift's not working now. It was working a minute ago. So back into self-test again. Let's just do keyboard, start. So I'll try caps lock. Yeah, caps lock shows. Shift doesn't. Oh, hang on, it did then. Yeah, if you hold down shift and press a certain letter, it shows. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure the keyboard's completely working now. So you could argue that I've had to do lots of unnecessary work here. So that was the 138, you can see soldered good there. This was the Pokey, as you see, you can see good connections. I've just got a little scratch somewhere, I can't see it here through the viewfinder on the PCB, just like a little scratch somewhere there. But and then the two 4051s, whatever they are. So yeah, the board's looking pretty clean now. I'll clean up the shield and reassemble the case, I think. So before I actually reassemble it completely, I'm going to get rid of that corrosion off there. And there's just a few specks on the shield in here, you can see, you know, so I'll just scratch them off with a wire brush. Light piece of fine sandpaper on the top of where this corrosion is here. Wipe it down with some WD-40. Just wipe it down with a clean rag. Just get any excess off there. It's looking a lot better. Last quick look at the board here before I reassemble it. You can see corrosion gone. I cleaned up the shielding underneath as well. No corrosion on that anymore. And it looks in good condition. And you can see there where I managed to put the original wire back in place, because there was two mods to this. You can see one wire comes from the 08 over here. One goes between the 138 and the 08, 7408, LS08. Yeah, so it just comes out of pin 2. I managed to just sneak it under the middle of the under the socket. Actually, the wire went through with the pin as well, so it's a good join and stuff. So that looks alright. It's nice and tidy. Yes, I didn't need to do these, but I did want to take the Pokey off here because I do want to do a dual Pokey setup. Now I've got two Pokeys, so I've nothing lost really. And when you're reassembling one of these, I guess the thing you want to do is not put all these twists back in place, especially if you plan on going back in it again. If you're not going to go back in there, it's different. You may as well just twist them all. But what I would suggest is don't twist them much, just enough to hold it in place. Because just bending these 3 or 4 times, if you go in and out, in and out, in and out the case, they'll snap off. And don't do all of them, so I'm just going to do these back ones and perhaps one of the 2 of the very front ones, just to make sure it doesn't come off like this. We'll just make sure, yeah, we can't pull it off, and we'll just do the bare minimum, because I will be going in this again at some point to do further upgrades, I think. Well, I say further upgrades, it's not being upgraded, is it? Could call it an upgrade from not working. Yeah, so we'll just do these 2 front ones, I think. So here's the end result. It's looking pretty clean actually. You can see the grey there. It's not too bad of a match really. It doesn't sort of stand out like a sore thumb like it did as a big hole, and it's not white anymore. Yeah, and down there, yeah, it's not perfect. You can see it's just rippled a bit there where the paint's actually just drying. Spraying it perhaps would be better, but the colour's not a bad match actually. So when it's once it's sat there like that, it looks okay actually. Keys are a bit yellowed. I could always retro bright those later. They're pretty easy to pop off. But yeah, I'll just show you just some basic up here just to test it again a bit more thoroughly, and test the sound out. I thought I want to play around with the sound, which is what I've just been doing. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.